Good morning, friends. We probably should have read longer yesterday, but if you were with me, my two youngest boys were here, and it was a little bit crazy because we were reading horrible stories about rape and mutilation and all kinds of really fun stuff that is found in Judges in the Bible. Cool. So we stopped reading because the boys were there listening to all of it and had many dinner conversations about women being cut into 12 pieces. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Judges chapters 20 and 21. Yeah, story I didn't know was in there. So we are actually in 1 Samuel now, and we should have read some of it yesterday, but I didn't know where to stop, and it was way too crazy for me mentally to be trying to do that with them there, which is kind of an odd thing to say. Like, I didn't want to read my Bible in front of my kids. Kind of an odd thing to say. But regardless, the topic of that particular chapter was not really something that I felt like reading with my 10, 11-year-olds. So we are now in 1 Samuel. If you want to read along, we're supposed to read 12 chapters to be caught up today. Not sure if that's going to happen. We'll see how far we get. So if you want to read along, go for it. If you just want to hear me read to you, that's cool too. As usual, I will stop with my random commentary about how I feel about whatever we are reading. So let's get into it. 1 Samuel chapter 1. And Jack's back there. Hey, Jack. He's the best part of the videos, for sure. Okay. There was a man named Elkanah who lived in Ramah in the hill country of Ephraim. He was the son of Jeroham and the grandson of Elihu from the family of Tohu and the clan of Zuph, I think. Elkanah had two wives, Hannah and Peninnah. Peninnah had children, and Hannah did not. Each year, Elkanah and his family would travel to Shiloh to worship and sacrifice to the Lord Almighty at the tabernacle. The priests of the Lord at that time were the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas. On the day that Elkanah presented his sacrifice, he would give a portion of his sacrifice to Peninnah and to each of her children. But he gave Hannah a special portion because he loved her very much, even though the Lord had given her no children. But Peninnah made fun of Hannah because the Lord had closed her womb. Year after year it was the same. Peninnah would taunt Hannah as they went to the tabernacle. Hannah was finally reduced to tears and would not even eat. "What's the matter, Hannah?" Elkanah would ask. "Why aren't you eating? Why be so sad just because you have no children? You have me. Isn't that better than having 10 sons?" What a jerk. Like, why would that girl be so rude? Taunt her until she was reduced to tears because she didn't have children. Once when they were at Shiloh, Hannah went over to the tabernacle after supper to pray to the Lord. Eli the priest was sitting in his customary place beside the entrance. Hannah was in deep anguish, crying bitterly as she prayed to the Lord, and she made this vow. "O Lord Almighty, if you will look down upon my sorrow and answer my prayer and give me a son, then I will give him back to you. He'll be yours for his entire lifetime, and as a sign that he's been dedicated to the Lord, his hair will never be cut." They were big on not cutting hair back then. As she was praying to the Lord, Eli watched her. Seeing her lips moving but hearing no sound, he thought she was drinking. Okay, so the priest saw her and thought she was drunk because she was praying without talking out loud. "Must you come here drunk?" he demanded. "Throw away your wine." "Oh, no, sir," she replied. "I'm not drunk, but I'm very sad, and I was pouring my heart out to the Lord. Please don't think I'm a wicked woman, for I've been praying out of great anguish and sorrow." "In that case," Eli said, "cheer up. May the God of Israel grant the request that you've asked of him." "Oh, thank you, sir," she exclaimed, and she went back and began to eat again and was no longer sad. The entire family got up early the next morning and went to worship the Lord once more. Then they returned home to Ramah. When Elkanah slept with Hannah, the Lord remembered her request, and in due time she gave birth to a son. Hold on. Okay, good. There are two wives. I was like, tell me that is not her dad. It's her husband. So when Elkanah slept, that makes it even worse that Peninnah was such a jerk to her. These are sister wives, and she's like, you can't get knocked up, and I did. Okay. So the Lord remembered her request, and in due time she gave birth to a son. She named him Samuel, for she said, "I asked the Lord for him." The next year, Elkanah, Peninnah, and their children went on their annual trip to offer a sacrifice to the Lord. But Hannah did not go. She told her husband, "Wait until the baby is weaned, and then I will take him to the tabernacle and leave him there with the Lord permanently." "Whatever you think is best," Elkanah agreed. "Stay here for now, and may the Lord help you keep your promise." So she stayed home and nursed the baby. When the child was weaned, Hannah took him to the tabernacle in Shiloh. They brought along a 3-year-old bull for a sacrifice, a half bushel of flour, and some wine. After sacrificing the bull, they took the child to Eli. Sir, do you remember me? Hannah asked. I'm the woman who stood here several years ago praying to the Lord. I asked the Lord to give me this child, and he's given me my request. Now I'm giving him to the Lord, and he will belong to the Lord his whole life. And they worshipped the Lord there. Then Hannah prayed, My heart rejoices in the Lord. Oh, how the Lord has blessed me. Now I have an answer for my enemies as I delight in your deliverance. No one is holy like the Lord. There is no one besides you. There is no rock like our God. Stop acting so proud and haughty. Don't speak with such arrogance. The Lord is a God who knows your deeds. He will judge you for what you've done. Those who are mighty no more, and those who were weak are now strong. Those who are fed well are now starving, and those who are starving are now full. The barren woman now has 7 children, and the woman with many children will have no more. The Lord brings both death and life. He brings some down, but the grave rises others up. The Lord makes one poor and another rich. He brings one down and lifts another up. He lifts the poor from the dust, yes, from a pile of ashes. He treats them like princes, placing them in the seats of honor. For all the earth is the Lord, and he has set the world in order. He will protect his godly ones, but the wicked will perish in darkness. No one will succeed by strength alone. Those who fight against the Lord will be broken. He thunders against them from heaven and judges them throughout the earth. He gives mighty strength to his king and increases the might of his anointed one. Then Elkanah and Hannah returned home to Ramah without Samuel. The boy became the Lord's helper, and he assisted Eli the priest. Now, the sons of Eli were scoundrels who had no respect for the Lord or for their duties as priests. Whenever anyone offered a sacrifice, Eli's sons would send over a servant with a 3-pronged fork. While the meat of the sacrificed animal was still boiling, the servant would stick the fork in the pot and demand that whatever it brought up be given to Eli's sons. Wow. And all the Israelites who came to worship at Shiloh were treated this way. Sometimes the servants would come even before the animal's fat had been burned on the altar and would demand raw meat before it had been boiled so it could be used for roasting. The man offering the sacrifice might reply, Take as much as you want, but the fat must be burned first. Then the servant would demand, No, give it to me now, or I'll take it by force. Wow. So the sin of these young men was very serious in the Lord's sight, for they treated the Lord's offering with contempt. Yeah, people have been killed in this book for a heck of a lot less than that. Now Samuel, though only a boy, was the Lord's helper. He wore a linen tunic, just like that of a priest, and each year his mother made a small coat for him and brought it to him when she would come with her husband for the sacrifice. Before they returned home, Eli would bless Elkanah and his wife and say, May the Lord give you other children to take place of this one that she gave to the Lord. And the Lord gave Hannah 3 sons and 2 daughters. Meanwhile, Samuel grew up in the presence of the Lord. Now Eli was very old, but he was aware, Jack, stay here, of what his sons were doing to the people of Israel. He knew, for instance, that his sons were seducing the young women who assisted at the entrance to the tabernacle. Eli said to them, I've been hearing reports from the people about the wicked things that you're doing. Why do you keep sinning? You must stop, my sons. The reports I hear among the Lord's people are not good. If someone sins against another person, God can mediate for the guilty party. But if someone sins against the Lord, who can intercede? But Eli's sons would not listen to their father, and the Lord is already planning to put them to death. So God's already planning on killing them, he just hasn't done it yet. Meanwhile, as Samuel grew taller, he also continued to gain favor with the Lord and with people. Hold on, I've got to go close the door. Pause. What? Nope, stay there. You can't go out there because Dad's sleeping. Okay, sorry. My husband is asleep, and if he barks, he's going to wake him up, so I didn't want him to leave the room and bark, and normally the door's closed. I'm not sure why it was open. Okay, so one day a prophet came to Eli and gave him this message from the Lord. Didn't I reveal myself to your ancestors when the people of Israel were slaves in Egypt? I chose your ancestor Aaron from among all of his relatives to be my priest, to offer sacrifices on my altar, to burn incense, and to wear the priestly garments as he served me. And I assigned the sacrificial offering to you priests. So why do you honor your sons more than me? For you they have become fat, the best offerings of my people. Therefore, the Lord, the God of Israel, says, the terrible things you're doing cannot continue. I had promised that your branch of the tribe of Levi would always be my priests, but I will honor only those who honor me, and I will despise those who despise me. I'll put an end to your family. No members of your family will ever live out their days. Those who are left alive will live in sadness and grief, and their children will die a violent death. And to prove that what I've said will come true, I will cause your 2 sons, Hophni and Phinehas, to die on the same day. Then I will raise up a faithful priest who will serve me and do what I tell him to do. I will bless his descendants and his family, and and his family will be priests to my anointed kings forever. Then all of your descendants will bow before his descendants, begging for money and food. Please, they'll say, give us jobs among the priests so we have enough to eat. We are actually reading in 1 Samuel. We're on 1 Samuel 3. You okay, Jack? That's crazy. So Eli's sons are being terrible. They're scoundrels, and not in a good way like Han Solo. So they are going to die, and they're going to replace him with someone else. So chapter 3. Meanwhile, the boy Samuel was serving the Lord by assisting Eli. Now in these days, messages from the Lord were very rare, but visions were quite uncommon. One night, Eli, who was almost blind, had just gone to bed. The lamp of God had not yet gone out, and Samuel was sleeping in the tabernacle near the ark of the God. Suddenly the Lord cried out, Samuel, Samuel. Yes, Samuel replied, what is it? And he jumped up and ran to Eli. Here I am, what do you need? I didn't call you, Eli replied. Go back to bed. So he did. And the Lord called out again, Samuel. So Samuel jumped up and ran to Eli. Here I am, he said. What do you need? I didn't call you, my son, Eli said. Go back to bed. Samuel did not yet know that Lord, because he'd never had a message. Jack. Leave it. He'd never had a message from him. So now the Lord called a third time, and once more Samuel jumped up and ran to Eli. Here I am, he said. What do you need? Then Eli realized it was the Lord who was calling the boy, so he said to Samuel, go and lie down again. And if someone calls, say, yes, Lord, your servant is listening. So Samuel went back to bed. The Lord came and called as before, Samuel, Samuel. And Samuel replied, yes, your servant is listening. Then the Lord said to Samuel, I am about to do a shocking thing in Israel. Shocking. I am going to carry out all my threats against Eli and his family. I warned him continually that judgment is coming for his family because his sons are blaspheming God and he hasn't disciplined them. So I have vowed that the sins of Eli and his sons will never be forgiven by sacrifices or offerings. Samuel stayed in bed until morning and then got up and opened the doors of the tabernacle as usual. He was afraid to tell Eli what the Lord had said to him, but Eli called out to him, Samuel, my son. What? You can't go out there, Jack. Sorry. Here I am, Samuel replied. What did the Lord say to you? Tell me everything, and may God punish you if you hide anything from me. So Samuel told Eli everything. He did not hold anything back. It's the Lord's will, Eli replied. Let him do what he thinks best. As Samuel grew up, the Lord was with him, and everything that Samuel said was wise and helpful. All the people of Israel from one end of the land to the other knew that Samuel was confirmed as a prophet of the Lord. The Lord continued to appear at Shiloh and give messages to Samuel there at the tabernacle, and Samuel's words went out to all the people of Israel. Oh, chapter 4, the Philistines capture the ark? I didn't know that happened. At this time, Israel was at war with the Philistines. The Israelite army was camped near Ebenezer, and the Philistines were at Aphek. The Philistines attacked and defeated the army of Israel, killing 4,000 men. After the battle was over, the army of Israel returned to their camp, and their leaders asked, why did the Lord allow us to be defeated by the Philistines? Then they said, let's bring the Ark of the Covenant. Jack, what are you doing? He's making the weirdest snarfing noises. Jack, what are you doing? I have no idea what he's trying to eat over there. What? What are you doing? Is there something in the couch? You're a goofy boy. Oh, the dog. Good morning. Thank you for being with us. Okay, so the dog was doing something weird and distracting me. So they're going to carry the ark into battle to save them from their enemies. So they sent men to Shiloh to bring back the ark of the covenant of the Lord, and who is enthroned between the cherubim. Hophni and Phinehas, the sons of Eli, helped carry the ark to where the battle was being fought. When the Israelites saw the ark of the covenant coming out from their camp, their shout of joy was so loud that it made the ground shake. What's going on? The Philistines asked. What's all this shouting about in the Hebrew camp? When they were told it was because the ark of the Lord had arrived, they panicked. The gods have gone into their camp, they cried. This is a disaster. We've never had to face anything like this before. Who can save us from these mighty gods of Israel? These are the same gods that destroyed the Egyptians with plagues when Israel was in the wilderness. No, bro. Come here. No, Jack. Come. That's how the door got open. He just opened it. Oh, that little punk. Thank you. Our house is from 1896, so the doors are original and very, very pretty. I love them too. except not when they open like that, because the dog sticks his head in. He legit just shoved his nose in. His head probably weighs more than a bowling ball. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm very distractible today. Okay, so they were wondering who can save us. Fight as you never have before, Philistines. If you don't, we'll become the Hebrews' slaves, just as they have been ours. So the Philistines fought desperately, and Israel was defeated again. The slaughter was great. 30,000 Israelite men died that day, and the survivors turned and fled to their tents. The ark of God was captured, and Hophni and Phinehas, the two sons of Eli, were killed on the same day. A man from the tribe of Benjamin ran from the battlefront and arrived at Shiloh later that same day. He had torn his clothes and put dust on his head to show his grief. Eli was waiting beside the road to hear news of the battle, for his heart trembled for the safety of the ark of God. When the messenger arrived and told him what happened, an outcry resounded through the town. "What is all this noise about?" Eli asked. The messenger rushed over to Eli, who was 98 years old and blind. He said to Eli, "I have just come from the battlefront. I was there this very day." "What happened?" Eli demanded. "You've been defeated," the messenger replied. "Thousands of Israelite troops are dead on the battlefield, and your two sons, Hophni and Phinehas, were killed too, and the ark of the God has been captured." When the messenger mentioned what happened to the ark, Eli fell backward from his seat beside the gate, and he broke his neck and died. Wait, okay. The guy's like, "Your kids are dead." He's like, "Meh." The guy's like, "The ark was captured," and he fell backwards from his seat, broke his neck, and died. For he was old and very fat. Fell backwards, broke his neck, and died because he was old and very fat. Okay. Eli's daughter-in-law, the wife of Phinehas, was pregnant and near the time of her delivery. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Come on a house tour with me. Although the last time that I did this, someone told me that I needed a nose job, which was not very nice. All right. Hold, please. What? Do you want to go outside, Jack? Do you need to go outside? No barking. If you're going to go outside, go. Our dog is the most wonderful dog ever, except he barks a lot. Hello, yes, doggo. There he is. Jack. They're looking at you. I hope I was actually showing you the dog. Okay, come on. Come on. We're going to leave him there. All right. Sorry, that was a wonderful house tour, wasn't it? Okay. And if he starts barking, I might have to go, because that's the only thing that my dog does that drives me insane, is he barks a lot. And you can't get him to stop. And he barks at nothing. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. All right. So, we were reading about... that doesn't even make any sense. Okay, so we were reading about Eli's daughter-in-law, and we are on chapter 4 in 1 Samuel. Thank you. Yeah, our house is very, very old. I can actually give you a real house tour sometime, but that was just me walking into the kitchen. Okay, so Eli's daughter-in-law, the wife of Phinehas, was pregnant and near the time of her delivery. So when she heard that her husband and father-in-law were dead, her labor pains began, and she died in childbirth. The midwife tried to revive her, but she passed away, and the midwives encouraged her. "Don't be afraid," they said. "You have a baby boy." But she didn't answer or respond in any way. She named the child Ichabod. How did she name him if she couldn't respond? She named the child Ichabod, where is the glory, murmuring, Israel's glory is gone. And she named him this because the ark of God had been captured, and because her husband and father-in-law were dead. Then she said, the glory has departed from Israel, for the ark of God has been captured. Chapter 5 is really short. That's a neat living room light. Thank you. I don't know which light you were talking about. I think you mean the big chandelier. That's the one that I walked by. Yeah, older houses are the best. We are reading a very strange version, actually, the book. When I decided that I was going to read the Bible in a year, this is my son's Bible, and it was sitting there, so that's what we picked up. But it's a good version because it doesn't have a lot of like crazy language. It's easy to understand, but it's not like NIV. It's the book. He's 13, so I think it was made for younger kids, which is really ridiculous because there's still stuff in it that I don't understand. Yeah. Pretty much, yes. That's a good way to say it. It's Americanized. Yeah. Like when they said that God was shockingly doing something. Yeah, they used some funny words. Okay. After the Philistines captured the Ark of God, they took it from the battleground at Ebenezer to the city of Ashdod. They carried the Ark of God into the temple of Dagon and placed it beside the idol of Dagon. When the citizens of Ashdod went to see it the next morning, Dagon had fallen with his face to the ground in front of the Ark of the Lord. So they set the idol up again. But the next morning, the same thing happened. The idol had fallen face down before the Ark of the Lord again. This time his head and hands had broken off and were laying in the doorway. Only the trunk of his body was left intact. That is why, to this day, neither the priests of Dagon or anyone who enters the temple of Dagon will step on its threshold. Then the Lord began to afflict the people of Ashdod and the nearby villages with a plague of tumors. When the people realized what was happening, they cried out, "We can't keep the Ark of God of Israel here any longer. He is against us. We'll all be destroyed along with our god Dagon." So they called together the rulers of the 5 Philistine cities and said, "What should we do with the Ark of the God of Israel?" The rulers discussed it and replied, "Move it to the city of Gath." So they moved the Ark of the God of Israel to Gath. And when the Ark arrived at Gath, the Lord began afflicting its people, young and old, with a plague of tumors. And there was a great panic. They sent the Ark to the city of Ekron. But when the people of Ekron saw it coming, they cried out, "They're bringing the Ark of God of Israel here to kill us too." So the people summoned the rulers again and begged them, "Please send the Ark of God of Israel back to its own country, or it will kill us all." For the plague from God had already begun, and a great fear was sweeping across the city. Those who didn't die were afflicted with tumors, and there was weeping everywhere. That's crazy. Okay, so I just said I live in a really old house, and there are these 3 vases on the counter that I swear to you move every day, and it drives me crazy. If I had this ark next to an idol and Dagon kept falling, I would be so freaked out. Like, seriously, that's crazy. And then its arms and legs broken? No thanks. And then everybody getting sick? I wouldn't want that. The Ark of the Lord remained in Philistine territory for 7 months in all. Then the Philistines called their priests and diviners and asked them, "What should we do about the Ark of the Lord? Tell us how to return it to its own land." "Send the Ark of the God of Israel back, along with a gift," they were told. "Send a guilt offering so the plague will stop. And then if the plague doesn't stop, you'll know that God didn't send the plague." Okay. "What sort of guilt offering should we send?" they asked. And they were told, "Since the plague has struck both you and your rulers, make 5 gold tumors and 5 gold rats, just like those that have ravaged your land." Ew. "Make these things to show honor to the God of Israel, and perhaps then he'll stop afflicting you, your gods, and your land. Don't be stubborn and rebellious as Pharaoh and the Egyptians were. They wouldn't let Israel go until God had ravaged them with dreadful plagues. Build a cart, find 2 cows that have had calves, make sure the calves have never been yoked to a cart. Hitch the cows to the cart, but shut their calves away from them in a pen. Put the Ark of the Lord on the cart, and beside it place a chest containing the gold rats and the gold tumors. Then let the cows go wherever they want. If they cross the border of our land and go to Beth Shemesh, we'll know it was the Lord who brought this great disaster upon us. If they don't, we'll know that the plague was simply a coincidence and it was not sent by the Lord at all." So these instructions were carried out. What leader was like, make a gold rat and then let the cows go wherever they want and we'll see if it was God? Like, what? So there's a theory proposed the Ark of the Covenant contained radiation, hence the rumors, that started to make sense, except the Israelites didn't have tumors. Interesting. And I'm sorry, but I do not speak Hungarian. Yeah, all I can think of when they talk about it is Raiders of the Lost Ark, which I know is really terrible, but that's what I see. Okay, so we are finding out what is going on with these cows. So the instructions were carried out. 2 cows with newborn calves were hitched to the cart, and their calves were in a pen. The Ark of the Lord and the chest containing the gold rats was placed on the cart. Sure enough, the cows went straight along the road towards Beth Shemesh, lowing as they went. I think that means making a noise. The Philistine rulers followed them as far as the border of Beth Shemesh. The people of Beth Shemesh were harvesting wheat in the valley, and when they saw the ark, they were overjoyed. The cart came into the field of a man named Joshua and stopped beside a large rock. So the people broke up the wood of the cart for a fire, killed the cows, and sacrificed them to the Lord as a burnt offering. Several men of the tribe of Levi lifted the ark of the Lord and the chest containing the gold rats, don't forget those, and gold tumors from the cart and placed them on the large rock. Many burnt offerings and sacrifices were offered to the Lord that day by all the people of Beth Shemesh. The 5 Philistine rulers watched all of this and returned to Ekron the same day. Okay, how did they watch this? They walked down the road behind the cows and then just stopped at the border? They just stood on the border and watched these people doing this? The 5 gold tumors that were sent to the Philistines by the Philistines as a guilt offering were gifts from the rulers of Ashdod, Gaza, Ashkelon, Gath, and Ekron. The 5 gold rats represented the 5 Philistine cities and their surrounding villages controlled by the 5 rulers. The large rock at Beth Shemesh, where they set the ark of the Lord, still stands in the field of Joshua as a reminder of what happened there. But the Lord killed 70 men from Beth Shemesh because they looked into the ark of the Lord. Oh. And the people mourned greatly because of what the Lord had done. Who is able to stand in the presence of the Lord, this holy God? They cried out. Where can we send the ark from here? So they sent messengers to the people at Kirath Jearim and told them, the Philistines have returned the ark. Please come and get it. Okay, people, it's not that complicated. Maybe you just shouldn't look into it. Everyone's like, I don't want this thing. These are incredibly interesting times. Yes, I agree. And I'm so sorry that I can't speak Hungarian. Seriously, put it back in the temple. Yes, amen. Okay, so chapter 7. The men of let's figure out if this ark actually goes back to the temple. I would love to know where it is. I don't know if you guys were with me the day that I was reading it, but in the Ark of the Covenant, there is manna. Like the stuff that God sent from heaven, there's manna in the ark. I want to taste it. So maybe I shouldn't judge. Maybe I would have opened it. But I think back then they would know what it tasted like. Like, we haven't had it for years. I would like to know what manna tastes like. Clearly, I'm a foodie. Let's figure out what that tastes like. It's hidden. I thought so. I thought no one could find it. Well, let's figure out where it's going. So the men of Kirath Jearim came to get the ark of the Lord. They took it to the hillside home of Abinadab and ordained Eleazar his son to be in charge of it. The ark remained in Kirath Jearim for a long time, 20 years. During that time, all of Israel mourned because it seemed like the Lord had abandoned them. Then Samuel said to all the people of Israel, if you're really serious about wanting to return to the Lord, get rid of your foreign gods and your images of Ashtaroth. Determine to obey only the Lord, and then he'll rescue you from the Philistines. So the Israelites destroyed their images of Baal and Ashtaroth and worshipped only the Lord. Then Samuel told them, come to Mizpah, all of you. I will pray to the Lord for you. So they gathered there in a great ceremony, drew water from a well, and poured it out before the Lord. They also went without food all day and confessed that they had sinned against the Lord. And it was at Mizpah that Samuel became Israel's judge. When the Philistine rulers heard that all of Israel had gathered at Mizpah, they mobilized their army and advanced. The Israelites were badly frightened when they learned that the Philistines were approaching. Plead with the Lord our God to save us from the Philistines, they begged Samuel. So Samuel took a young lamb and offered it to the Lord as a whole burnt offering. He pleaded with the Lord to help Israel, and the Lord answered. That just as Samuel was sacrificing the burnt offering, the Philistines arrived for battle. But the Lord spoke with a mighty voice of thunder from heaven, and the Philistines were thrown into such confusion that the Israelites defeated them. The men of Israel chased them from Mizpah to Bethkar, slaughtering them all along the way. Then Samuel took a large stone and placed it between the towns of Mizpah and Jeshanah, and he named it Ebenezer, the stone of help. For he said, up to this point the Lord has helped us. The Philistines were subdued and did not invade Israel again for a long time. And throughout Samuel's lifetime, the Lord's powerful hand was raised against the Philistines. The Israelite towns near Ekron and Gath and the Philistines had captured were restored to Israel, along with the rest of the territory that the Philistines had taken. There was also peace between Israel and the Amorites in those days. Samuel continued as Israel's judge for the rest of his life, and each year he traveled around, setting up his court, first at Bethel, then at Gilgal, then at Mizpah. He judged the people of Israel at each of these places, and then returned home to Ramah, where he would hear cases there too. Samuel built an altar to the Lord at Ramah. Okay, well, we'll be here reading until chapter 12, so good luck. We probably will still be here when you get back from your shower, because we're on chapter 8. So we still have a couple pages left. Okay. As Samuel grew old, he appointed his sons to be judges over Israel. Joel and Abijah, his oldest sons, held court in Beersheba. But they were not like their father, for they were greedy for money. They accepted bribes and perverted justice. Finally, the leaders of Israel met at Ramah to discuss the matter with Samuel. Look, they told him, you're now old, and your sons are not like you. Same thing of Eli. Give us a king like all the other nations have. Samuel was very upset with their request and went to the Lord for advice. Do as they say, the Lord replied, for it is me they're rejecting, not you. They don't want me to be their king any longer. Ever since I brought them out of Egypt, they have continually forsaken me and followed other gods, and now they're giving you the same treatment. Do as they ask, but solemnly warn them about how a king will treat them." So Samuel passed on the Lord's warning to the people. "This is how a king will treat you," Samuel said. "He will draft your sons into his army and make them run before his chariots. Some will be commanders of his troops, while others will be slave laborers. Some will be forced to plow in his fields and harvest his crops, while others will make his weapons and chariot equipment. The king will take your daughters from you and force them to cook and bake and make perfume for him. He'll take away the best of your fields and vineyards and olive groves and give them to his servants. He'll take a tenth of your harvest and distribute it among his officers and attendants, and he'll want your male and female slaves and demand your finest of your cattle and donkeys for his own use. He'll demand a tenth of your flock, and you'll be his slaves. And when that day comes, you will beg for relief from this king you're demanding, but the Lord will not help you." The people refused to listen to Samuel's warning. "Even so, we still want a king," they said. "We want to be like the other nations around us, and our king will govern us and lead us into battle." So Samuel told the Lord what the people had said, and the Lord replied, "Do as they say. Give them a king." So Samuel agreed and sent the people home. Kish was a rich, influential man from the tribe of Benjamin, and he was the son of Abiel and the grandson of Zeror from the family of Bechorath and the clan of Aphiah. His son Saul was the most handsome man in Israel, head and shoulders taller than anyone else in the land. One day Kish's donkeys strayed away, and he told Saul, "Take a servant with you and go look for them." So Saul told one of his servants and traveled through the hill country of Ephraim, the land of Shalisha, the Shalem area, and the entire land of Benjamin, but they couldn't find the donkeys anywhere. That's crazy. They looked a very long way for a donkey. Finally, they entered the region of Zuph, and Saul said to his servant, "Let's go home. By now my father will be even more worried about us than the donkeys." But the servant said, "I've just thought of something. There's a man of God who lives here in this town. He's held in high honor by all the people because everything he says comes true. Let's go find him, and perhaps he can tell us which way to go." "But we don't have anything to offer him," Saul replied. "Even our food is gone. We don't have a thing to give him." "Well," said the servant, "I have one small silver piece. We can at least offer it to him and see what happens." In those days, if the people wanted a message from God, they would say, "Go and ask the seer," for prophets used to be called seers. "All right," Saul said, "let's try it." So they started into the town where the man of God was. As they were climbing a hill towards the town, they met a young woman coming out to draw water, and Saul and his servant asked, "Is the seer here today?" "Yes," they replied, "stay right on this road. He is at the town gates and has just arrived to take part in a public sacrifice up on the hill. Hurry and catch him before he goes up the hill to eat. The guests won't start until he arrives to bless the food." So they entered the town and passed through the gates. Samuel was coming out towards them to climb the hill. Now the Lord had told Samuel the previous day, "At about this time tomorrow I will send you a man from the land of Benjamin. Anoint him to be the leader of my people Israel. He will rescue them from the Philistines, for I have looked down on my people in mercy, and I have heard their cry." When Samuel noticed Saul, the Lord said, "This is the man I told you about. He will rule my people." Just then Saul approached Samuel at the gateway and asked, "Can you please tell me where the seer's house is?" "I am the seer," Samuel replied. "Go up the hill ahead of me to the place of sacrifice, and we'll eat there together. In the morning I'll tell you what you want to know and send you on your way. And don't worry about those donkeys that were lost 3 days ago, for they have been found. I'm here to tell you that you and your family are the focus of all of Israel's hopes." Saul replied, "But I'm only from Benjamin, the smallest tribe in Israel, and my family is the least important of all the families of that tribe. Why are you talking like this to me?" Then Samuel brought Saul and his servant into the great hall and placed them at the head of the table, honoring them above all 30 special guests. Samuel then instructed the cook to bring Saul the finest cut of meat, the piece that had been set aside for the guest of honor. So the cook brought it and placed it before Saul. "Go ahead and eat it," Samuel said. "I was saving it for you even before I invited the others." And Saul ate with Samuel. After the feast, when they returned to the town, Samuel took Saul up to the roof of the house and prepared a bed for him there. At daybreak the next morning, Samuel called up to Saul, "Get up, it's time you're on your way." So Saul got ready, and he and Samuel left the house together. When they reached the edge of the town, Samuel told Saul to send his servant on ahead. After the servant was gone, Samuel said, "Stay here, for I have received a special message for you from God." Okay, chapter 10. Yikes. Have you ever had to break up with someone? Yeah, I think everyone has, haven't they? Kind of like breaking up with these judges when they're not doing a good thing. Okay, so chapter 10, we're almost done, guys. Kind of. All right. Then Samuel took a flask of olive oil and poured it over Saul's head. He kissed Saul on the cheek and said, "I'm doing this because the Lord has appointed you to be the leader of the people of Israel. When you leave me today, you will see 2 men beside Rachel's tomb at Zelzah on the border of Benjamin. They will tell you that the donkeys have been found and that your father is worried about you and asking, 'Have you seen my son?' When you get to the Oak of Tabor, you'll see 3 men coming towards you who are on their way to worship God at Bethel. One will have 3 young goats, another will have 3 loaves of bread, and the third will have a skin of wine. They will greet you and offer you 2 of the loaves, which you are to accept. When you arrive at Gibeah of God, where the garrison of Philistines is located," hi, Jack, "you'll meet a band of prophets coming down from the altar on the hill. They'll be playing a harp, a tambourine, a flute, and a lyre, and they'll be prophesying. At that time, the Spirit of the Lord will come upon you with power, and you will prophesy with them. You'll be changed into a different person, and after these signs take place, do whatever you think is best, for God will be with you. Then go down to Gilgal ahead of me and wait for me for 7 days. I will join you there to sacrifice burnt offerings and peace offerings. When I arrive, I'll give you further instructions." As Saul turned and started to leave, God changed his heart, and all of Samuel's signs were fulfilled that day. When Saul and his servant arrived at Gibeah, they saw the prophets coming toward him. Then the Spirit of God came upon Saul, and he too began to prophesy. When his friends heard about it, they exclaimed, "What? Is Saul a prophet? How did the son of Kish become a prophet?" One of the neighbors responded, "It doesn't matter who his father is. Anyone can be a prophet." And that is the origin of saying, "Is Saul a prophet?" When Saul finished prophesying, he climbed the hill to the altar. "Where in the world have you been?" Saul's uncle asked him. "We went to look for the donkeys," Saul replied, "but we couldn't find them, so we went to the prophet Samuel to ask him where they were." "Oh, and what did he say?" his uncle asked. "He said the donkeys had been found," Saul replied, but Saul did not tell his uncle that Samuel anointed him to be king. Later, Samuel called all the people of Israel to meet before the Lord at Mizpah, and he gave them this message from the Lord, the God of Israel. "I brought you from Egypt and rescued you from the Egyptians and from all the nations that were oppressing you. And though I've done so much for you, you've rejected me and said, 'We want a king instead.' Now therefore present yourselves before the Lord by tribes and clans." So Samuel called all the tribal leaders together before the Lord, and the tribe of Benjamin was chosen. Then he brought each family from the tribe of Benjamin before the Lord, and the family of the Matrites was chosen. Finally, Saul, son of Kish, was chosen from among them. And when they looked for him, he had disappeared. They asked the Lord, "Where is he?" The Lord said, "He's hiding among the baggage." So they found him and brought him out, and he stood head and shoulders above everyone else. Then Samuel said to all the people, "This is the man the Lord has chosen as your king. No one in Israel is his equal." And all the people shouted, "Long live the king." Then Samuel told the people what the rights and duties of a king were. He wrote them on a scroll and placed it before the Lord, and Samuel sent the people home again. When Saul returned to his home at Gibeah, the band of men whose hearts the God had touched became his constant companions. These were some wicked men who complained, "How can this man save us?" And they despised him and refused to bring him gifts, but Saul ignored them. So a band of men whose hearts the God had touched was companions, but there were still some wicked men. Okay, once you read the Bible, you are possessed by God. Amen. So basically hypnosis. That's an interesting theory. Okay, I don't know that I would agree with you. No, I don't think so, because there have been lots of times where I have read this and not necessarily agreed with it or not necessarily liked what it said, and I think if I was God hypnotized, then I would be like, "This is great," and I don't think that I feel that way all the time. Like the stories that we read yesterday really upset me. I was crying and not happy about them, so I think if I was hypnotized, I wouldn't feel that way. Just my opinion, though. Okay, so we're on chapter 11. About a month later, King Nahash of Ammon led his army against the Israelite city of Jabesh-Gilead. The citizens of Jabesh asked for peace. "Make a treaty with us and we'll be your servants," they pleaded. "All right," Nahash said, "but only on one condition. I will gouge out the right eye of every one of you as a disgrace to Israel." What? Why? "Give us 7 days to send messengers throughout Israel," said the leaders of Jabesh. "If none of our relatives will come to save us, we agree to your terms." At least they weren't like, "Okay, take our eye." When the messengers came to Gibeah, Saul's hometown, and told the people about their plight, everyone broke into tears. Saul was plowing in the field, and when he returned to the town, he said, "What's the matter? Why is everyone crying?" They told him about the message from Jabesh. Then the Spirit of God came mightily upon Saul, and he became very angry. He took 2 oxen and cut them into pieces and sent his messengers to carry them throughout Israel with this message. This is what will happen. The dog is barking again. Oh, I don't know what I just did. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. It says swipe to close. Oh, okay. Sorry. Sorry, I did not know what I just did. Jack, come on. Good boy. Come Come on. Thank you. I'm with Mom. You can't be outside barking. Come on. Come on, Jack. Let's go. All right. Come here. Where's your toy? Is that the light you were talking about? I guess you can't really see it, but yeah, it's a very pretty chandelier. Okay. Okay. I think that door's actually closed. Because Jack's been getting out of it and barking. Awesome. This has been a really crazy day today, guys. I'm sorry. I think it's because we've had so much to read. It's been so long that it's been a little crazy. So, yeah. Hi. Good boy. That's a good boy. How about you get your treat and we'll throw it? We're almost done. You guys can look at Jack instead of me if you want. He's much more fun. What? Here. Oh, good. I'm glad that you're back. There's Jack. Say hi. You say hi? Look at that face. Look at that handsome face. Yes. You're such a good boy, Jack. You say hi? Are you being shy? What? What? He's a good boy. His ears are so soft. All right, why don't you get your toy, Boo? Mom's gonna read. We're almost done. We're almost done, Boo. And then you won't go play? Is that the problem? Am I not playing with you enough? Okay, we're almost done. Say, hurry up, Mom. Hurry up, Mom. All right. Okay, so Saul was cutting up people. He sent messengers to carry them throughout Israel and said, "This is what will happen to the oxen of anyone who refuses to follow Saul and Samuel into battle." The Lord made the people afraid of Saul's anger, and all of them came out together as one. When Saul mobilized them at Bezek, he found out that there were 300,000 men of Israel, in addition to the 30,000 from Judah. So Saul sent messengers back to Jabesh Gilead to say, "We will rescue you by noontime tomorrow." What joy there was throughout the city when that message arrived. Yeah, because they don't want to lose their eye. The men of Jabesh told their enemies, "Tomorrow we will come out to you, and you can do to us as you wish." All right, Jack's over it, but we're almost done. Oh, yeah, he's such a good boy. All right. Okay, so we're almost done. Let's figure out what happens. Okay, so they're like, yay, they're going to come back at noon, so we don't have to lose our eyes. So they said, "Tomorrow we'll come out to you, and you can do to us as you wish." But before dawn the next morning, Saul arrived, having divided his army into 3 detachments. He launched a surprise attack against the Ammonites and slaughtered them the whole morning. The remnant of their army was so badly scattered that no 2 of them were left together. Oh, that's crazy. Then the people exclaimed to Samuel, "Now where are those men who said Saul shouldn't rule over us? Bring them here and we'll kill them." But Saul replied, "No one will be executed today, for today the Lord has rescued Israel." Then Samuel said to the people, "Come, let us all go to Gilgal to reaffirm Saul's kingship." So they went to Gilgal, and in a solemn ceremony before the Lord, they crowned him king. Then they offered peace offerings to the Lord, and Saul and all the Israelites were very happy. Okay, last chapter. Then Samuel addressed the people again. "I have done as you asked, and I have given you a king. I selected him ahead of my own sons, and I stand here an old gray-haired man. I have served as your leader since I was a boy. Now tell me, as I stand before the Lord and before his anointed one, whose ox or donkey have I stolen? Have I ever cheated any of you? Have I ever oppressed you or taken a bribe? Tell me, and I'll make right whatever I have done wrong." "No," they replied, "you've never cheated or oppressed us in any way, and you've never taken a single bribe." "The Lord and his anointed are my witnesses," Samuel declared, "that you can never accuse me of robbing you." "Yeah, that's true," they replied. "It was the Lord who appointed Moses and Aaron," Samuel continued. "He brought your ancestors out of the land of Egypt. Now stand here quietly before the Lord as I remind you of the great things that he's done for you and for your ancestors." When the Israelites were in Egypt and cried out to the Lord, he sent Moses and Aaron to rescue them from Egypt and bring them to this land. But the people forgot about the Lord, so he let them be conquered by Sisera, the general of Hazor's army, and the Philistines and the king of Moab. Then they cried out to the Lord again and confessed, "We've sinned by turning away from the Lord, worshipping the images of Baal and Ashtaroth. But we'll worship you and you alone if you rescue us." So the Lord sent Gideon, Barak, Jephthah, and Samuel to save you, and you lived in safety. But when you were afraid of Nahash, the king of Ammon, you came to me and said that you wanted a king to reign over you, even though the Lord your God was already your king. All right, here's the king you've chosen. Look him over. You asked for him, and the Lord has granted your request. Now, if you will fear and worship the Lord and listen to his voice, and if you do not rebel against his commands, and if you and your king follow the Lord your God, then all will be well. But if you rebel against the Lord's commands and refuse to listen to him, then his hand will be as heavy upon you as it was upon your ancestors. Now stand here and see the great thing the Lord is about to do. You know that it does not rain at this time of year during the wheat harvest. I will ask the Lord to send thunder and rain today, and then you will realize how wicked you are in asking for a king. So Samuel called to the Lord, and the Lord sent thunder and rain. And all the people were terrified of the Lord and of Samuel. Pray to the Lord your God for us, or we will die, they cried out, for now we've added to our sins by asking for a king. Don't be afraid, Samuel reassured them. You've certainly done wrong, but make sure now that you're worshiping the Lord with all your heart and that you don't turn your back on him in any way. Don't go back to worshiping worthless idols, like the one that's arms got cut off, that cannot help or rescue you because they are useless. The Lord will not abandon his chosen people. That would dishonor his great name. He has made you a special nation for himself. As for me, I will certainly not sin against the Lord by ending my prayers for you, and I will continue to teach you what is good and right. But be sure to hear the Lord and sincerely worship him. Think of all the wonderful things he's done for you. But if you continue to sin, your king will be destroyed. Spoiler, the next chapter says continued war. Okay. So, question, was there a written moral law from God before the flood? And you said, no, only the law given by God to the generations by his priests. And when did his priests live? Was it after Noah? Yes. So when we read about Noah, we're reading the Bible in chronological order. And we read about Noah a very, very, very long time ago. So the priests came after that. And actually what Samuel was just talking about was the judges, which came in the book of Judges. Yeah. So the written moral law came from Moses when he went up, right? Aries, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's what you're talking about, is the written moral law came from Moses. So he went up on the mountain, and that's when God gave him the 10 Commandments, and he came down and gave them to the people, except the people were worshiping something else. So Moses threw them at the ground and broke them, and he actually had to go back and get a second copy. I didn't know that till I started reading the Bible, and I think it's hilarious. As a parent, there are times when your kids make you really mad, and I broke an iPad once, which is not a tablet of stone, but I threw it and it broke. So that's exactly what Moses did. He was really mad and chucked them at the ground, and then God had to carve new ones. Anyway, that makes me laugh. So we read a ton today. Good job, guys. Thank you for sticking with me. I'm so sorry that was really long. It's been a crazy week with having the kids home quarantining, but we're caught up, and we've been reading for 100 days. That was day 100. So that's crazy. We've gotten done this much, and even some of these, and we're going to be continuing through Samuel and then starting to add Psalms in it. So that's going to be really cool. So yay. I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you for hanging out with me. It's always much easier when you guys are here and I'm not reading to myself. And so sorry that we had a intermission. We had some brief intermissions because the dog was deciding that he needed to bark. So I hope that you guys have fantastic things planned for the rest of your day. I'm going to go row and create some art. So let me know what you're doing. That sounds like it's a Tuesday. It's Tuesday. Yeah. Everything's all confusing with Thanksgiving too, but today's Tuesday. Got some stuff to do, and I'm excited that we are caught up and done, and that you guys, all my friends, have been here today. It's been a great one. So I hope that you have a great rest of your day. See you tomorrow. Bye.